As a multifamily broker, I'm sure you can understand I get calls every day from frustrated investors trying to find inventory, trying to find something to buy. What I find in almost every single case is that most investors have no idea the few number of assets that actually exist in any one market, and more importantly, how few trade per year, even in an up market. In this video, I'm going to shed some light on the baseline knowledge every investor should have about their markets. Now, once you have this knowledge, it's either going to invigorate you to kill it in this business, or you're going to go crying home to your mommy about how hard it is to succeed in this business. You know what to do. Let's go! I was on a podcast recently called Discovering Multifamily with Anthony Scandariato, and he asked me, how do you find more assets? Take a listen. One of the things I find that most investors misunderstand is that most of them are clueless on how many assets there actually are in any given market, how few actually sell per year, how powerful some of the competition is, and they mostly just have misdirected efforts for how you procure assets. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the entire northern half of Florida in terms of inventory and number of sales, and it doesn't matter what market you're in. You know, if you're in New Jersey, California, Boston, whatever it is, this same type of scarcity exists in all the markets. And the important thing to keep in mind is that you have to kiss a lot of frogs to see deals. So let me give you the stats. Let me talk to you about who some of these elite investors are. Let me talk to you about how few number of deals there actually are, so that you understand that you're probably doing everything right. You're just not doing as much. So in the entire northern half of Florida, there are only 1,959 assets over 10 units. Now I'm talking about Gainesville, Ocala, Daytona, New Smyrna, Ormond, DeLand, Deltona, St. Augustine, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, Lake City. Like, these are all major markets. Only 1,959 assets over 10 units. Now those 1,959 assets are owned by only 993 investors in the world, in the entire world, just 993. Now, of those 1,959 assets, only 866 are over 100 units, and those are owned by 406 people. So you can think Florida, which is one of the top 5 states in the entire country for multifamily, and there's only 400 people that control all of the larger inventory. Now, here's what's even more startling, is that of the top 1% of owners own 11% of all assets, or 21 properties each. The top 2% own 17%, and the top 5% own 27% of all assets, or 11 properties each. And what I have found is the elite, the ones who own all the assets, are owning more and more each year. So that 27% has actually been growing year after year after year, because the bigger they get, the better they get, the more brokers bring those same guys assets, because they consistently close and make brokers look good to the sellers. So it's a reinforcement loop. Now let's look at the flip side. 66% of owners own only one asset. 17% of investors own only 2 properties. So if you add 66 and 17, you got 83% of investors own only 50% of the inventory, which means the other 17% of owners own 50% of the inventory. So they keep getting wealthier, and that's about 5.6 properties each. Again, this is the same across the entire country, the scarcity. So I have found that, and I've been tracking this for a long time, on average, between 5 and 10% of inventory trades per year in any given market, number of deals. And overall average is actually around 8%. It's 8.2% currently. So my point is that let's go over a scenario, and I actually use a very similar scenario like this in the book, Multifamily Investors Who Dominate. So for instance, if you were an investor, Anthony, who only bought 100+ unit deals that are conventional, so not student housing, not affordable housing, just conventional, now that 866 properties goes to 566. And if you only bought deals deals that are between like 1980 and 2015, which is a pretty popular age segment because people don't want stuff that's more than 40 years old. People don't want stuff that's super new because it's hard to value add it. Then there's only 306 assets. If you only were going after the ones that haven't already sold in the last 2 years, because it's going to be hard to add value to something that's already been bought in the last 2 years. They're probably already adding value to it. Now there's only 252. Now there's another 20 to 25% of inventory that's refinancing. So that could knock that down even more. And then it could be in locations you don't want. It could be just types of physicality of the property you don't want. But let's just use the 252, for example. If only 8% of assets are trading, that's only 20 properties a year in the entire northern half of Florida if you were that kind of buyer. That's less than 2 deals a month. So to go back to your original question, which is, how do you find deals and what do? You first have to understand they are already super scarce. You may already be doing everything correctly in my book, which is highly doubtful, but let's just say you were. There's still only 2 chances a month max that you can even find anything. In that scenario, we just talked about 100 plus units, but it's the same if you were buying 10 to 50. The scarcity exists. I have found there's only 1 to 2 chances a month in the entire northern half of the state. Once you consider the fact that they may be in locations that you don't like, or they may be owned in long-term funds, or whatever the case may be. So when a deal comes up in a month and you see it and you're like, the price doesn't work, or it's not a location, you have to understand it may be weeks and weeks or months before you see another one that matches your description. So it's super important you do everything right when they do come up. The information you just heard is actually really, really powerful. By understanding the scarcity of assets in any one market allows you to stick to it, to power through it, while everyone else who doesn't understand the inventory constraints gets frustrated and quits along the way. If this video brought you a lot of value, please hit the like and subscribe button down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.